Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls of all ages, welcome to the show. This is the Paranormal Portal. I am your host, Brent Thomas, and I hope you're doing wonderful out there, whatever you're doing. But at least part of what you're doing is spending the night with me, and I guess that makes me incredibly fortunate indeed. So, hope everything's going good. Happy Friday, everybody, and thanks to the Freaky Friday crew. It's always a pleasure following you guys. That video game sounds absolutely intense. I don't know. I'd probably lose myself in it and forget to ever log off. So anyway, guys, thanks for being here and being a part of our show. It is Friday night. Excuse me. Sorry, just a little bit of Coca-Cola coming back to kick me. But we have some cool things lined up for you tonight. I got some really cool emails that I'm going to go over with you guys. I'm really looking forward to it. Including some EVPs that were sent in by our very own MCAT, Mike Hetzel, along with a video that was sent in by Beth, Beth Fierce. So it's going to be a pretty cool night, just even for just listener submissions, which is by far my favorite part of the show. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I love all the parts of the show, really, but I just love when you guys share what's going on, what you've seen, what you've experienced, because that's incredibly powerful. I mean, you guys are bringing stuff to the table nobody has ever seen or heard before. There may be similar things out there, but you see things in your own way, and by that I mean the details you guys record may be very different than have ever been shared before. So, listener submissions to me are absolutely golden. And I really love when you guys do that. The phone lines are going to be open. They'll be open all night. So if you want to call in and be a part of the show, I would absolutely love hearing from you. And the phone number for the portal is 720-923-0500. Again, 720-923-0500. There's 2 ways to chat if you want to be a part of the show, as well as calling in. We have 2 wonderful chat rooms, tfrlive.com/chat. You can log in there and get your own username and password and chat with the folks over there. Wonderful people. They've been a part of the portal since the very beginning. Otherwise, if you have a YouTube account already, you can head over to youtube.com/paranormal portal. And the chat room is always robust and exciting over there as well. So 2 very good options to stay in touch or to get involved with either the TFR community or our YouTube chat. So, I guess I hope you guys are doing wonderful. I hope you're ready to go, because I'm ready to bring you the best show I know how. And I want to start out with Beth's stuff. And first I'm going to read the email that she sent, because it was really pretty phenomenal as well. Now, the funny thing was I got this email on, last Friday. As I had gotten into Coloma, or Missoula, Montana, to do that investigation over there at the ghost town, which was really pretty cool. And if you're not familiar with any of that, like you hadn't heard about it, you can head over to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/paranormal portal and check out the investigations playlist. And there are several videos up there that were streamed live as they happened, and I have some other videos to get up that were recorded only. They weren't streamed. Just a fair warning, there was we were on top of the mountain in a ghost town, far away from the towns and stuff. So the fact that we could stream it all was pretty incredible, but there were some streaming glitches. But the fact that we could do it at all, I think, is just miraculous. So anyway, this is a email from a listener, Beth, and she says, "I hope you can open the attached video. Before Paranormal Portal, I never gave a second thought to some of the things that happened to friends or to myself. I grew up in a very bad church that taught us if it wasn't godly, it was the devil trying to take us away from what we were supposed to believe. They told us what to believe, and when you're a child, you have to believe what you're told, so be it true or not. But I grew up, and I do know better now. I don't have a lot of stories, but it's good to be able to share the few things I can talk about with like-minded portalites." Portalites, that's cool. "The video is one of many that are captured on my neighbor Lee's camera. It's not dust. The camera is there to watch their dogs and when they're not home or at night while they sleep. They had one old dog that needed monitoring, and Lee and her husband moved into an old house just down the street from me about 4 years ago. Lee has a sense for supernatural occurrences and is never afraid. She's a deeply spiritual woman. When they first moved in and started remodeling the back of the house, dozens of orbs regularly floated out of the fireplace. Lee felt that these orbs were children and they never bothered her. And underneath the part of the house that held the fireplace, they found a big hole in the ground and figured it was an old well. When we looked down into it, you could see footholds on the side, so apparently someone was able to go down into the well. And the original owner of this huge house was a revered doctor in town. After thinking about the connection between the well, the orbs, and whatever the doctor did there, it made sense that he was probably doing illegal things, perhaps abortions. In the late 1930s and 40s, abortions were not discussed. There is no proof, so Lee contacted the doctor's daughter. And even though she's up in age, her mind is still clear. She would never give Lee a definite answer. Lee's skinny brother-in-law was coming to check out the well and find out how deep it was and what might be at the bottom. The weekend he arrived, the guys pulled up the rest of the wood and, well, the well was gone. It was gone. I'm not kidding. They could not find the hole. It disappeared. No one could explain this. The remodeling continued, and once the concrete was poured, the fireplace orbs stopped. Before they bought this house, there used to be a light on in the attic many nights. Nancy and Paul across the street saw the light. Lauren next door saw it. I saw it. And yet the house had no electricity at all. None. Lee's sister and families visit her for holidays and will not sleep alone in the upstairs bedroom. They heard sounds like shoes being thrown at the wall. The door opens and shuts on its own, and Lee believes a man must have died by hanging in this room. She often hears the chair fall over and the sound of shoes scraping back and forth across the floor. She's moved that chair and it still falls over. The woman who lived across the street did hang herself in that specific house, but I didn't think the spirits moved locations. Would she be hanging around at Lee's house instead? Not normally. That would be very unusual. Last winter, I had some heating problems, and she offered to let me stay in the house. And I thanked her and said, nope. I'd rather freeze. So many things happen in that house, and maybe one day someone will have the answers as to what really took place in the doctor's house. She did send a video clip that was taken, of course, from the dog area. Now, Dan and I did look at this. And while there are a couple things in there that may very well be dust, there's a couple things that seem to be emitting their own light. And I'm going to show it now and, come to your own conclusions. The show isn't about convincing anybody anything, but see what you will, take what you will from it. But I think it's really phenomenal. So thank you for sending it in, first and foremost, because this is just incredible. Let me get it loaded up here just a sec. I gotta download it. Oops, forgot that. All right, let me get this open now. All right, hold on. Okay. Oh, no, wrong page. Let me do this. Hold on. Let me move it over. Why in the hell isn't it moving over? That's creepy weird. What the hell? It won't go over to the other page. I'm confused. Just a sec. Give me another second, ladies and gentlemen. It has a mind of its own, apparently. And that mind does not include me. There we go. Now I got it moved, and I'm going to blow it up. And I'm putting it up full screen for our viewing pleasure here on the portal. So, for those of you that are on TFR, iHeart, TuneIn, and TalkStream Live, the scene is essentially a nanny cam kind of thing in what looks like a room with a pool table and some child fences put up to keep the dogs corralled. And there are these sparkling little lights that appear to be floating through the scene. That's my explanation of it. Just stand by. So here's the room. Now, if you watch around here, there's a couple sparkly things that happen that they don't seem like your traditional dust. They do seem pretty unique, and they have a flickering pattern to them. Now, that one had a different trajectory. Even the dog doesn't want to stay there. He moves over to another bed. So take of it what you will. Again, I'm not trying to convince anybody of anything, but to me, at least a few of those look like they seem to be moving outside of what I would consider a normal wafting dust pattern. But again, we'll watch it one more time, and you can see what you see. See the dog looking around, doesn't seem real comfortable. Some of those have really peculiar patterns and they almost have streaking tails to them. I don't know the exposure rate of this camera. There's a lot of things I don't know. But at the very least, it's incredibly compelling. And I find those absolutely fascinating. So take of it what you will, ladies and gentlemen. But thank you so much, Beth. I appreciate you sending this in. Very, very cool video. Very cool stories. I really appreciate, you taking the time to make that a part of our show. Now, the next one is going to be coming from, I got to play it on my other computer here because it is audio. And let's see, we got 14 minutes. Yeah, so these are from a good friend of the show's, Mr. Mike Hetzel. He's known in the YouTube chat as MCAT. And he says, these were taken at the Evergreen Cemetery in Manitowoc, Wisconsin, where my grandparents are buried. Recorded on my cell phone. Evergreen is an interesting cemetery with stones dating back to the 1830s. So there are 3 EVPs that we're going to play now. Again, I can see that little cat hair in my nose. They are recorded on a cell phone, but Dan and I listened to these as well, and we were like, wow. All right, so let's see if I can get this to play. Hold on. All right. So the first one I don't hear anything on. I'm not sure if I missed it. I'll play it again here. Hold on. Okay. Yeah, I didn't hear anything on that one. Let's see what the next one does. Now that one I heard a yeah right in the middle there. Now let's play it again. See if you guys hear the same thing. Of course, it was absolutely quiet except for the little bit of traffic noise that you hear in the background. There's like a whisper sound prior to that, and I've got it jacked up about as loud as I can get it. I'm going to turn up the preamp a little more and play it one more time. So listen carefully. Wow. So there's like a it's hi, and then yeah. One more time. Wow. That's really cool. Okay, and let's go to the third one. And hear what we hear here. Hear what we hear here. Sorry. That was completely unplanned. That's how my head works, ladies and gentlemen. Again, you can hear a whole conversation going on in there. It's really subtle, but let's listen to it again. I really jacked up the preamp now. Wow. Okay, one more time. That's really intense. So there's whole conversations going on back there. And again, these are recorded with a cell phone in Manitowoc, Wisconsin, by Mike Hetzel, who is a longtime friend of the show. He's a paranormal investigator, as well as a great friend of the show. But he's been an amazing contributor to the show for a long time. But these are really cool. I really got to get this in my headphones jacked right into it and really turn it up. But I'm not quite sure what they're saying. But it is really cool. Unfortunately, I can't keep an eye on the chats here. I don't know if MCat's in the YouTube chat or not. It doesn't look like I see his name. Oh, yeah, he is. He said, I was visiting my grandparents' stone and did some recordings. Okay. Very cool, brother. I definitely on the second to for sure hear something. I'm not sure I'm hearing anything on the first one, though. What was going on in the first one? I'm just going to give him a second to respond here. But, yeah, it's very cool. You can use your cell phone. I mean, the cell phone recorders are actually pretty well engineered for this kind of use. They have very sensitive microphones on them. So, hey, Spaces Between Paisley, good to see you. Good to see you coming in. Yeah, I don't know. I don't see a response yet. Well, if he comes back with something, I will let you guys know. But yeah, very cool. I really appreciate those. Thank you so much for sending those in. He said, I heard I love you twice, very whispery. Okay, I didn't hear that, but then again, as you can tell, I wasn't able to really jack up the volume from the laptop over to the mixing board, but I had the preamp like all the way jacked up, so I'll have to run it straight into my headphones and hear what I hear. But very cool. Thank you for sending those in, brother. Those are excellent. Now, let's see. We got 8 minutes left. I don't think I can get through the whole next one. It's quite a long story. It was submitted by a YouTube listener or viewer, I guess, called Kate Brown. I think I might be able to. Let me see if I can read through this quickly, ladies and gentlemen. So this is coming from Kate Brown. It says, I'm sitting in the chair that my husband died in. My kids wouldn't let me throw it away. Since I was forced to keep it, I might as well use it. No, there were no body fluids in the chair. He was collected by the coroner fairly quickly. My home has had 2 deaths in it. My mom and my husband. Mom had a heart attack, and my husband had cancer. Although I've seen an apparition in my home, it was before anyone had died there. There had never been a home here before we moved here. It was a forest and hayfield. If there was a home here, it was so long ago that any trace of it is long gone for at least 60 to 100 years, judging by the size of the trees, which are huge. I was sitting in my computer room, which is located in the direct center of my 1-floor house. It used to be a bathroom, but we converted it into a mini office for my computer and such equipment. I was sitting there playing a video game, and I thought I saw my daughter walk by wearing a light seafoam green nightgown. It had long sleeves and a high neckline. The sleeve cuffs looked embroidered and were at least 4 to 6 inch range in length. I was surprised to see my daughter out of bed and jumped up and asked what was wrong, thinking she could have had a bad dream. And when I got to the door of our living room, I noticed the fan in the door and my daughter asleep on the couch wearing a bright yellow SpongeBob pajama bottoms and a bright yellow t-shirt. I had to think for a moment. I stood there a little confused, thinking back just a few seconds. I realized that the person walking didn't step over the fan. And her hair color was different than my daughter's and was thinner than my own daughter. My daughter was about a size 14, and this person was more like a size 8. My daughter has medium brown hair, and this person was blonde. I did look all over the house, but I couldn't find an open window or door or anything. Everything was locked up tight. Since then, we've had a few things happen that were indeed strange, and I was making peanut butter sandwiches for the kids. I had the bread, peanut butter sauce, saucers, and a butter knife, and while looking for the jelly bent over, looking in the fridge, my peanut butter disappeared. I had thought one of the kids must be playing a joke on me, and I looked out the kitchen window. All my kids were still in the pool playing. Where had I put it? So I started looking everywhere for it. I looked in the bread box, the cabinets, the pantry. I was standing there trying to think of where I might have put it, so I went back to the pantry to check again. Not finding it, I returned to the counter, and there, inside the bag of bread, was my peanut butter. I know I had not put it in there, and no one else was in my house with me. I had just had it in my hand and set it down to look for the jelly. I had shampoo bottles fly off the shelves from the unoccupied shower while I was standing at the sink. They couldn't just slide off the shelf. The shelf had a 3-inch lip. My husband lost his measuring tape and we couldn't find it anywhere, and he simply ran to the hardware store, bought a new one, and about 6 months later, we were remodeling the bathroom and found it inside a sealed wall sitting on a stud behind where the bathroom sink had been. We've lost car keys, wallets, jewelry, books, an iPod, cords to computers, only to find them in odd places. We would never think to put them in weeks or months later. Over the years, things have quieted and things don't disappear anymore, but we've had other things happen. Water pipes bursting. Three trees next to our house were struck by lightning, killing them. And my dishwasher, just a string of things, seemingly bad luck for the last 5 years. My son's car engine started leaking oil, and we can't find where the leak is on the engine. A sewer pipe busted under the house. The repairman said it looked like someone beat it with a hammer, although we had to dig a hole to get access under the house to fix it. And when you put them together, it's a lot of things going wrong over a period of 5 years. I've had 4 lawnmowers, all checked by a mechanic to find nothing wrong with them, but they still will not run, even for the mechanic. I bought a junk push mower at a yard sale for $10, and that has lasted for 3 years, and it looks old as dirt, but it runs and cuts grass extremely well. Last year I fell through a perfectly good floor and broke my leg, and it seems I found the one weak spot in the floor and it gave way. I weigh about 180 pounds. I'm not an overly obese person. The floor should have held my weight. My sons couldn't find any dry rot, termite damage, no splits in the wood, and no real explanation for why this one spot would just collapse. If I hadn't have landed in a beam under the floor, I would have gone all the way through. I never thought I would walk again without a limp, but I have recovered most of my movement in the knee. I have gained strength over the last few months and have started to get back to doing regular everyday things. It took a very long time to heal, but I'm glad I finally did, and I still have twinges of pain now and then, but that is mostly due to working muscles that haven't been doing much for a year. I've taken a great joy in going shopping, mowing the lawn, and even standing to wash the dishes, and maybe soon I can return to the workforce and earn my keep again. My eldest son and nephew moved in to help me out, and without them and my daughter, I would have been in dire straits. I couldn't do most things on my own anymore, as anyone that has had a broken limb or in life knows. Old bones, tendons, and ligaments don't heal as fast as the young ones. Sorry for rambling on to you all. I get bored from time to time and tend to type whatever comes to mind. Well, I'm really glad you did. Those are some really amazingly epic stories and encounters. Very weird. The whole disappearing items and reappearing in weird places, that's incredibly profound. I wonder if you got a portal in that house. I don't know. That is really, really intense stuff going on in that house, especially since there's no history. But then again, the land has history itself, so we don't know what the land was used for prior to this house being there. I mean, she said there was no other houses, but maybe it was a very sacred spot for the Native Americans. Maybe it's where some ley lines come together, and maybe there's some naturally occurring portals. Maybe. It's hard to know. But clearly there's a lot of things going on in that location, and it sounds absolutely epic. I mean, I don't know. Some people might take umbrage with that and say, how can you say that? It sounds like everything's been horrible, and maybe it has. But what I'm saying is that these events seem to defy traditional explanation. There's no explanation for what's going on for this person, from what I can tell. I assume that she's got some reasonable faculties and can look at things objectively. And if so, I'm sure she's gone over several things, like when she talked about going through the floor. Her sons looked for dry rot. They looked for splints in the wood or, weak spots or anything and couldn't find any. So how do you explain that? Who goes right through a floor? So it almost makes you wonder if there isn't some like really weird time-space stuff going on in that location. And I don't pretend to know much about that, ladies and gentlemen. All I have is ideas and theories, but I do know we're going to go to our break. So first break of the night. Don't go away, everybody. We will be right back for more of the Paranormal Portal.
No fear. Real people. Real radio.
welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We are back at it here on the Paranormal Portal on Truth Frequency Radio and YouTube, respectively. So, hope you're having a good time. Hope you've enjoyed that first segment. I know I did, but that's just me. I just want to say hello to everybody in the chats. In TFR, we got Kev Baker still hanging out in there. So maybe he's checking out a little portal tonight, or maybe he just forgot to log off. Let's see. What is that? Ferdy Freedom, Andrians, Psycho Dave 321, Don Quixote, Lawrence, and Nice Being. Thank you guys for being here and watching the show and being a part of it. And then over in YouTube, I got a mouthful. We have Ace Age is over there, Aussie Tiger Rockstar Fams, Batgirl, Bigfoot Odyssey is here as well. Blue Idaho, Trina Fulmer, Cameron F, Cha-Cha, Chris Jarvis, Deborah Varner, Diane Fowler, Gemini Moon, Isaac Areola, Jerry Klein, Josh Jacobs, Christy Sci-Fi Gal, Lewis, MCAT, Many Musings, Matthew Learned, Malgalon Monster, I'm in there, Philip Blair, Sissy Lawson, and Taz. Welcome, everybody, and thank you guys for being here and being a part of the show. It's always a great pleasure. So I came across this article, and I thought this was really amazing. And here's the thing. People commonly pick up what they believe is paranormal activity on things like nanny cams. However, there's a different version of nanny cam out there. And as far as I can tell, it seems like a pretty proprietary version. But this nanny cam is developed by a company called Cocoon, I guess. And what it does is it actually watches the children in their cribs or bassinets or wherever. And it also, apparently is able to monitor their breathing. So it checks for motion, even the most subtle kind of motion. And as it does, it creates what's called a heat map. And if you're not familiar with what heat maps are, they're a tool that's used oftentimes in web development and stuff. You put a heat map over a website, and then it's invisible to the users, but you can see where people are clicking, what are they spending the most time on, and it appears as like a colorful hue on top of the web page for the web developer to look at what are people looking at and paying attention to, and what are they absolutely ignoring, to help for web design and things like that. So it's called a heat map, where the activity occurs, creates a colorful hue, and where nothing's happening, it's just a dead bland area. So, but this nanny cam appears to create a heat map based upon the baby's respiration. So it seems like a really cool technology because of things like SIDS and other complications a baby may have in their first part of life. That of course all parents are right on the edge of their seats, because when your baby's new, you just can't imagine what kind of pain that would be to have anything go wrong. So they've developed these new cameras that actually create this heat map, and you can see this colorful hue on the baby showing that it is respirating and it is breathing, and etc., etc. So really cool technology, really cool invention. However, I forgot to mention Rebecca. Okay, well, welcome, Rebecca. Sorry I missed you. So what people have been experiencing with these nanny cams, and I don't know how many, the article isn't really clear about it, but they've been experiencing these heat mapped apparitions. So these apparitions, and I'll put it on screen for our YouTube viewers, but you can go over to singularfortean.com. It's singular, like the word singular, and then Fortean, FORTEAN.com. And they have an article there if you're not able to see images of what I'm talking about, but it's really quite interesting. Now, here's the thing. It says, Los Angeles resident Natalie Wallace told the Wall Street Journal recently that she and her husband had been seeing strange ghostly forms appear on their baby monitor. Wallace, who helps run a leadership development company, first noticed the apparitions one night a month ago while lying in bed. She glanced at their Cocoon Cam baby monitor and was surprised to see pink and purple blobs surrounding their baby's bassinet. The colors are meant to indicate motion, which was odd because their baby was fast asleep. In the few days later, Wallace's husband showed her a screenshot he'd taken of a humanoid figure on the baby monitor and the figure appeared to be floating above the ground near their sleeping baby. Shortly after, they witnessed what looked like a number of ghostly figures looming over the infant. And it says Gary McMath, Cocoon Cam's marketing chief, blamed the apparitions on the baby monitors picking up objects moving in its frames, such as lights, shadows, or blowing curtains. And I'll address that in just a second. McMath said that had the monitor been mounted on the wall as intended instead of placed on a dresser, it might not have malfunctioned. When the camera is properly installed, the computer's vision would focus on the baby's motions, waking, sleeping, even breathing, he said, and I hope this clarifies the matter. Despite McMath's assertion that they do not appear to be any objects in the baby's room that could be causing the malfunction. So despite his assertions, in the pictures, which I'll show those of you on YouTube in a second, there aren't curtains wavering around. I mean, there are these slat blinds, the little French door slat blind kind of things. It says, when pressed, he admitted that the company has been contacted by others who have experienced similar issues. We've gotten a few calls, emails asking about similar phenomena, said McMath. And Wallace tried to replicate the ghost by capturing other movement, including that of an alarm clock, her husband's rocking chair rocking the baby, and her baby moving in the bassinet, but she found that the colors signified those motions didn't match the apparitions they had seen. The couple has since decided to turn off the motion detector and only use the baby monitor's audio from now on. Two similar incidents from earlier this year seem to indicate that a rise in home monitoring may correlate to an increase in captured paranormal images. In January, a woman in Atlanta, Georgia, took us to social media to post a single image taken from a home security camera that seemed to show a ghostly image of her son, who passed away 2 years earlier. And in March, a Michigan couple captured on video what they believed to have been the ghost that had been terrorizing their household for weeks. So, and we've probably covered that if it's the same nanny cam ghost terrorizing the family, we've covered that one before. But I'm going to put this up on the screen, and you guys can see on YouTube, you can see these images. Again, if you're not able to see these images, singularfortean.com, and it's pink and purple hued apparitions captured by parents on Cocoon Cam baby monitor. So I'm going to put it up here. Here's the first image, ladies and gentlemen. And you can see, it has a very humanoid appearance. As far as the heat map appears to be in the shape of a person, which I find highly suspect. Now, here's a bigger version of that one. That's this one right here, is this one. And you can see there's one figure standing next to the baby's bassinet. In the next image that apparently the husband had captured, it's like there's a whole crowd of people around this bassinet. And again, even the crowd of people looks to be a collection of human-shaped people crowded together. It's very, very peculiar. Now, in light of the description that the representative of the company gave, that it can be curtains, it can be light coming through the window, my assertion is that the fact that these are human silhouettes is not just less likely just by chance. To me, that doesn't duplicate. So if there are no curtains in there, so that idea is out. That's not even present. So there's no motion of curtains that could be grabbing the attention of the heat map and creating these silhouettes. The second thing is that if the lights outside of these slat blinds, again, they are like those wooden doors that have the wooden blinds in them, and you can move that middle thing up or down to make the blinds go up or down. If that were the light coming through there, I would suspect that the heat map would match that pattern of slats or slots, that it wouldn't be one continuous or one silhouette of a human being because of the light possibly coming through these blinds. That to me doesn't match. I don't think the company probably wants to be known as the ghost cam, but I think they're foolish because there's a hell of a market, and perhaps they've inadvertently come up with a technology that might be able to see the motion of spirit energy. I don't know how those sensors work. I don't know the technology involved, but I think that it's really cool that these nanny cams are picking up these human-shaped apparitions. Again, they are only showing up via the heat map. In other words, they're only showing up as motion indications. They're not showing up as ghostly images at all. So there isn't like the white, wispy, ghostly image appearing in the frame. But it really does look like a collection of people crowded together around this bassinet looking at the baby sleeping. And to me, could that be family members stopping in from the other side, ancestors? I don't know. It's all speculation, of course, but I find stuff like that incredibly interesting and absolutely fascinating. So I get this hankering to get me one of these Cocoon cams. I'm telling you. So I just think that's really cool. That is really cool. So again, ladies and gentlemen, the phone lines are open. If you have anything to add or what you think about these Cocoon cams, picking up these heat maps, I don't know. I think it's really exciting personally, because as these technologies evolve and develop, of course, there must be an incredibly sensitive sensor on there to be able to detect the motion of the child breathing, and perhaps that same sensitive sensor is maybe tuned just right to collect energies of spirits. I don't know. But I think that the fact that they look like human-shaped heat maps, to me, is not the anomaly. It's the clue. I think that they have indeed captured something, and it really, really seems really cool to me. But I'm an enthusiast, so everything paranormal seems cool to me. I might not be in the majority on that, but any new mail? I don't know. Am I expecting new mail? Is that where we're going with this? Not for me. What my eyes can't see does not exist. I'll pass. Well, that's the point, though, is that this would give your eyes the ability to see, if that is indeed what's happening here. I don't know. To each his own. To each their own. I don't pretend that everybody should agree with me or share my sentiments. Refreshing, Julia. Let's see if there's more mail. Doesn't look like more mail, Julia. Thanks for asking, though. All right. Yeah, I don't see any more. Nothing showing up in the mailbag that I can see. Yeah, I want one too, Lori Myers. I agree. I think that's... oh my God, this might back up the stuff people like me see. You're right, Dee. Diane Swiger is a sensitive, and she sees spirits, and so maybe whatever these sensors are using would give people, average people, the ability to see such things too. I don't know. Just some thoughts is all I'm saying. Oh man, there seems to be a real rise in the amount of UFO type craft people are seeing. That's for sure. I'm seeing more and more articles like that come up. Oh man, where did I go? I lost my spot. All right, let me just close this. Okay, so we got about 11 minutes prior to the break. So let's see what I can get into here. Oh, I did read that one last time. So this is a Reddit post, and it says so I'm gonna have to explain this with the best detail I can remember, and it may seem long and have lots of pointless details, so please bear with me. But this had to have happened when I was around 9 or 10 years old, and it still haunts me till now. How long is this? Yeah, I should be able to get through this. 16 years later. A little semi-relevant backstory to start. When I was 7 and my granddad passed away, we moved into the house he lived in, as my mother was incredibly reluctant to let it go, even though he had passed away in the house, and I explicitly told her I didn't want to live there, as it was myself and her that found him. Nothing gruesome involved, just a little scarring for a child. We also lived there with him briefly whilst he was alive, but that was 3 years previous. And anyway, we moved in and it slowly became home again. It was only a medium-sized 3-bed house on a street with lots of houses on it, but Sometime in the early 50s, it was built, so very post-war type of UK build. So a few years passed since we moved in there, and it was a house I was never particularly comfortable in. Lots of nooks and crannies and a staircase that led immediately to the top of a hallway where 2 bedrooms were behind you and one in front. And I felt like the kind of house where you could always be watched by something, even with your back against a wall. There would be somewhere you couldn't quite see. And I'll add that I've always been a bit nervous Nelly and scared of the dark, but it's never been as intense as any other place I've lived in as it was here. So generic childhood bedtime rolls around somewhere around 9 p.m. as it was getting dark on a summer evening in the later months around the end of August. My mom was in her bedroom sorting some washing out, and I was getting ready for bed, procrastinating slightly and staring out of my bedroom window. This overlooked my back garden. The back garden we had was kind of in 2 parts. We had some patio doors from the lounge that opened up into the garden, and on the same wall we had a kitchen door that also opened up into the garden, and then further to the left-hand side was an alleyway to an independent entrance into the garden led from the driveway in the front. I'm stood staring out the said bedroom window, and I'm looking down onto the grassy part of the garden. Just behind the grassy part is a 3-foot wall. Into a raised area behind that, again, was a big greenhouse running the width of the garden, and a summer house off to the left, beside the raised area. As I'm looking into the garden at the houses opposite us, my attention darts down to the grassed area outside the patio doors. I then see something. It definitely saw me. It crouched down and ran on all 4s up the garden path all the way to the greenhouse. Realized that there was no exit, and then immediately right and jumped the 5-foot garden wall that separated us from our neighbor, bolts across their garden again towards another wall, and jumps that too. At this point, I've turned around and screamed for my mom to come and see what the hell it was. She obviously can't see anything, as whatever it was has absconded over various walls and fences by this point. She even goes into the garden to check and see if anything could be found or what it could have been doing. The only obvious signs that anything had been there were the plants it trampled in the escape and the grass that had pressure marks left from being walked on by this thing. They were visible in both mine and my neighbor's garden. I'll go into detail about the look of the creature now. When I first saw it, it looked black entirely in color, but that could have been the time of day distorting the real color. Size of an adult human, a hunched visible spine running down its neck to its bum. Its shape was perfectly human, but extremely defined and distorted limbs. The arms were so long and skinny, the legs were the same, but when it jumped, it really used its back legs and had such power in them to propel it over the fences. The feet were enormous, almost twice the size of any footprint I've seen, but long and thin, almost claw-like toes, and long claw-like hands, too. Its head was only visible from the back at close proximity, but it was bald. No hair, no clothes, just dark, almost reflectively shiny skin. And there was a prominent rib cage, but no obvious genitalia or facial features once it was further away. I still regret looking away to this day and not seeing where it went, as it ran towards the streetlights, but my 10-year-old wimpy self probably wouldn't have liked what I saw anyway. Sorry it's so long, but I just remember it so vividly, and I feel like the additional detail helps paint a better picture. It still plays like a crisp video in my head. Wow. That's a pretty intense kind of experience, especially for a 10-year-old. That's something they got to walk through their life with after that, you know? I don't know. That's not good. All right, let me close a few of these. I got about 6 minutes left. I wonder if there's a short thing I can read here. In the meantime, just to fill. Did it? No. Nope, still no new mail, Julia. So, I don't know where the mail was supposed to be coming from, but I just checked again. All right, let me just check this. Oh, that looks like a video link. I can't do that. Huh. Oops. This one is not too long. It says, I had a weird encounter at school that I still wonder about today. This happened at my high school around June of this year, not too long ago. I was with my friend and we were both seniors and pretty bored with nothing to do at school. So, oh, wait, hold on. We got a call. Let me get to this call first, ladies and gentlemen. This is area code 614. You are on the air. Hello? Hello? Area code 614. You're on the air. Okay, something's not working. All right, try again later. All right, so back to the story. This happened in my high school around June of this year, so not too long ago. I was with my friend, and we were both seniors and pretty bored with nothing to do at school, so we skipped a class and walked around the school until the period was over. We went onto a bathroom because there was some security guards at school eyeing us, so we decided to stay in the bathroom till the period was over. Keep in mind, our school entirely was old. Okay. Lots of wood and lots of noises from doors and floors, etc. The bathroom doors are very heavy and huge, and they have a tendency to slam shut and make the loudest noise when opening. So we're in the bathroom, and me and my friend heard loud footsteps like heels from a teacher approaching the bathroom door. The both of us went into separate stalls on the bathroom and waited. We heard her walk in. The loud door opened, and the heels were very, very clearly in the bathroom with us now. We even heard a stall door close. Someone getting in, and we hear the heels echoing in the bathroom for a little, and then it stopped. So we wait silently until 5 minutes go by, and then 5 more. It was just silent now, so I texted my friend and say, I'm going to go see if they're just students skipping class. I stepped out, and you guessed it, there was no one in there with us. I checked each stall, and there was no one. I immediately say out loud, dude, there's no one in here, and my friend comes out and is basically freaking out. We kept thinking about how, even if they left, we would have heard the huge, loud, creaky door open and close or the heels, but nothing. We were both thinking, no way. We heard them right here with us. We kept kind of laughing, nervously, trying to make a joke of it, but it really didn't make any sense. Someone was definitely in here. And then a few minutes later, after us freaked out, the bell rang and we walked out of the bathroom, and I think my friend and I were very scared, and we looked pale because when we walked out, a girl came in and looked at us and asked if we were okay, and then groups of people outside stared at us. That added to the weirdness, and the rest of the day, I hung out with that friend, and everything just felt weird, off balance, and I still wonder about it. I know it's not the creepiest story, but I was thinking about it today and decided to share it and see what you guys think. Well, I think you might have seen yourself a ghost. Just saying, it's possible. Let's see where we're at here. 2 minutes and 44 seconds, 40. So, ladies and gentlemen, also I want to take a moment to say, please check out our podcast. Don and I have been working really hard at getting the podcasts out there and going. We have 3 podcasts every week. So we release a podcast Monday, we release one Wednesday, and then we release one on Friday. And the Monday podcast is generally ghosts and ghostly kind of stuff. Wednesdays are generally UFO stuff, and Fridays are cryptids, Bigfoots, dogmen, you name it. We cover it on the portal. But we're having a lot of fun doing it, and we've got some amazing response so far. A lot of people are getting back to us about the podcast and telling us how much they enjoy it and that they're really glad they found it. But we hope you'll check it out too. It's a big part of what we're doing and a big part of what we're going to grow into, hopefully, on the show. I do see we got the same caller calling back. I think that's you, D. It must be your wireless or your normal cell phone, but I'll get to you after the break because there's literally just a minute left. But if you would check out the podcast, that'd be wonderful. It is available everywhere podcasts are available. So if you like to listen to your podcasts on Pandora, it's there. If it's on iTunes, we're there. Spotify, we're there. Just all of the different podcast sources, we're on it. And a special thanks to Revolver Podcast for making that possible. But we've been having a lot of fun with it. We got a lot of new development coming up on that as well. We've been working really hard on some production value ideas and I'll be releasing a teaser of that on our YouTube channel. For those of you who are subscribers, you will see that come up. Check it out, and hopefully you'll like what you hear and you'll check it out, and definitely subscribe, because the podcasts are nice because they don't require a continuous internet or data connection. So if you can download them, once you're subscribed, it should automatically download, and it'll just be available for you whenever you want to listen. And it's great for commutes or any other time when you're just hanging out. So check them out. We'd be most grateful, and spread the word about them as well. All right, guys, we'll be right back for hour number 2 here on the Paranormal Portal. Don't go away.
Play their games. Everybody loves to place their bets. They don't understand the price I paid. They don't care to comprehend. Trace their lines upon my body, ripping scars across my heart. Raging anger pours inside me as their lies keep falling apart. With my silence, I am not a stupid boy. No more breaking me with kindness, just you dance upon my joy. Leading me with empty promise, you're just another fucking mess. Taking off the slice of my sanity, just make sure that you're well fed.
I can't see you, Mommy. Where are you? I've never sensed anything like it. Carol Ann is not like those she's with. They're attracted to the one thing about her that's different from themselves. Her life force is very strong. It gives off its own illumination. It is a light that implies life and memory of love and home and earthly pleasures. Something they desperately desire, but can't have anymore. Right now, she's the closest thing to that.
Poltergeists are usually associated with an individual. Hauntings seem to be connected with an area. A house, usually.
Poltergeist disturbances are of fairly short duration, perhaps a couple of months. Hauntings can go on for years.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to hour number 2 of our show tonight. This is the Paranormal Portal. I am Brent Thomas, and I hope you are entertained. Are you not entertained? I hope you're having a good time. Thanks for being here. I was looking for any other messages. I've heard that perhaps there was more that were sent, but I've been through all the mailboxes I can think of, whether Facebook or Gmail or whatever, and I can't see anything. So if there's a message I'm supposed to receive, then I guess you'll have to resend it, whoever might have sent it in the first place. But anyway, welcome to the show, and we are in hour number 2 now, discussing all things paranormal, of course, which is obviously a topic that I'm plenty excited about. So I want to talk about a Bigfoot sighting here. And this is coming from Hawkins County, Tennessee, April 2009. I got family in Tennessee. Maybe it's Kentucky. I don't know. They just moved, so I'm trying. I think they're kind of in both sometimes or something. So it says, I was headed home from work, traveling in my regular route at about 45 miles per hour, headed north on Highway 70, Idison, Tennessee. Idson, maybe? Eidson, Tennessee. This highway connects Kyles Ford, Tennessee with Rogersville, Tennessee, and the highway crosses the Clinch Mountain Range and the Clinch River. I was still in Hawkins County when suddenly something came out of nowhere right in front of me in the road headed west. If you're at all familiar with the highways and roads of East Tennessee, you'll know that it's not uncommon for the roads to be narrow without guards, rails, or shoulders, and straight down on one side and straight up on the other. The point is there's nowhere to pull over or off the road, sometimes for miles. This was the situation here when this thing appeared in front of my car. My reflex was to hit the brakes and avoid it. I had no options but to skid to a halt in the middle of my lane at the precise moment a vehicle was approaching from the opposite direction. It is also not uncommon to have your bright lights on and have to dim them quickly as the roads curve quickly and without warning of an oncoming vehicle. When the driver of the other vehicle saw me and I him, we both had our high beams on, which totally illuminated the subject in question from both sides. I was able to get a very good look at it, and I brought my car up to a screeching halt, leaving tire marks on the road and causing my briefcase to fly off the front passenger seat onto the floor. The other vehicle hit its brakes also and came to an easier stop right across from my driver's side window. We both put our windows down and just looked at each other for a few seconds, and I asked, "Did you see what I saw?" His response was, "What did you see?" And this is the description I gave him. It was a creature with human-like form, as if a large man running. I estimated taller than I, making it maybe 6'3" or more. I'm 6 foot, and it was totally black, appeared to be covered with black hair, and I say hair, not fur, because with the illumination of the headlights in both directions, I could see through the hair as if it were being blown by the wind. The creature was in a dead run, so apparently the hair was affected by the force of the air as it ran, and the hair gave the appearance of being about 3 to 4 inches in length. I didn't see a face. Either it was turned from me or the skin and hairs were so black I couldn't distinguish the features. The other driver concurred with me on the description. The other driver's vehicle also had 2 passengers, and they all witnessed it as well and concurred on the description. Then the driver asked me how many legs was it running on, and I immediately responded 2. At that time, the passengers in his vehicle gave a little slug on the driver's arm and said, "I told you, 2 legs." At that time, we both turned our vehicles so as to aim our lights up the steep embankment to see if we could still see anything, but no success. At that time, another vehicle was approaching, and since we were now blocking the entire narrow passage, we had to straighten our vehicles and get moving. And I proceeded home. So, the next one is, I, knowing that one of our maintenance men live in the same general proximity as the sightings, was anxious to share my story with him, and I began my tale with, "Jim, you'll never believe what I saw last night." And as I began to tell my story, he interrupted me and started to tell me how it sounded similar to the story his father-in-law told him last night. And I asked Jim to tell me what his father-in-law told him, and Jim was telling me information that only the driver and passengers of the other vehicle and myself would know, since we're the only ones there. Synchronicity? I think so. What are the chances of me working with a relative of the person that encountered the same experience as I did? Jim told me that his father-in-law told him that when he stopped opposite my car and looked at me, he said my eyes were as big as saucers and I had the look of total surprise on my face. Jim was able to reiterate the conversation I had with his father-in-law, which verified to me that he had indeed was the driver of the other vehicle. During our conversation, the dietary manager, Jackie, heard us talking and stopped to listen. Then there was a break in the conversation. She interjected, "Bigfoot." I looked at her and said, "Now don't start." She, being a native of the area, informed us that for years there have been reports of similar nature in that same area, often referred to as Bigfoot, and I have yet to research this information. About 20 minutes after the news of our discussion had circulated through the facility, a CNA, Betty, came to my office who told me of her experience earlier that night. Betty told me that around 5 p.m. she and her husband, who live about 5 to 6 miles further down that nearby road from the sighting, had noticed what they thought was a man in the distance on their property, apparently trying to get access to one of their outbuildings. And Betty's husband, Bob, went in the house and retrieved a rifle and let off a warning shot to ward off the would-be intruder. The trespasser fled in a run into the woods. Betty and Bob went down to the area the trespasser was and found nothing out of the ordinary. However, noticed some very strange footprints in the slightly damp ground, and Betty described the prints as being approximately 5 to 6 inches in diameter and sort of round. That's weird. She said it was like a ball of the foot that would hit the ground running. Strangely enough, the foot was bare and had the imprint of 6 toes. What further puzzled both Betty and Bob was that there were obviously only 2 feet. The same 2 prints repeated several times. This is all the information I have at this time, and I don't know what conclusions to make from all this, but I find it very interesting that we have several collaborating stories that offer different information about a similar encounter happening in the same location and time frame. What do you think? I think you got yourself some big feet. I don't know. What is the plural of Bigfoot? Is it Bigfoots or is it big feet? I don't even know that. I don't know if anybody does. I'm not sure. I guess feet. Maybe foots. Foots, probably. Okay. Glad we had that talk. So that was one of them from Tennessee. I got a couple more here, and then I want to look at Kentucky. All right, let's see. What's going on here? I'm having trouble writing this because I do not recall the events of this night in full exacting detail. It was in the mid to late 80s, and my mom and stepdad and brother and my cousin were at a night fishing spot, a spot that we had never fished before, and it's an area that is along the main road, and we had a big ridge running behind. Sorry, it's not a brig, it's a big ridge running behind that where we were fishing. So I should also point out that the lake is on both sides of the road and that it isn't very far, the way the crow flies, to the Cherokee National Forest. I live in southeast Tennessee, and the incident occurred in Monroe County, although that is not the county I live in. It was late at night, and everything seemed still. The fish weren't biting real well, and we were contemplating going home, and we had been hearing sounds in the leaves on the ridge behind us, but passed it off as rabbits or something, and then my stepfather or brother shined a light towards where the sounds were coming from and was alarmed to see a pair of orange glowing eyes looking back at us. We then, as you can imagine, started quickly loading the van back up to get out of there. I might add that my stepfather and brother are not easily frightened, but they were clearly uneasy. As we were leaving, a really loud bang scared the wits out of us, and as something landed on the roof of the van, and we quickly made it home, only to get out and find a very large rock on top of the van, much too large. I feel I feel to have been thrown by someone. It might also add that we could hear sounds like muffled talking, but without any discernible words. We also, prior to that event, could hear sometimes at night what we called a varmint. It made a sound that none of us had ever heard before. It would be in the woods below our house, and then in just a matter of seconds, be quite a bit away from where it was when it first started. I recorded the sound on tape one night, and my stepfather took it to some old mountain-raised men, and they said that they had never heard anything like it before. And I would like to remain anonymous, as reporting a possible Bigfoot encounter around here would unleash a load of gossip and ridicule from the people around here. You can email me if you have any questions or whatever. Huh. That's pretty wild. I wonder how big that rock was. They are rock throwers, though, man, and I think they are deadly accurate rock throwers. It's not like they're just rock throwers like, hey, screw you. It's like, I think that they are like crack shots with a rock. All right, let's go to the last one from Tennessee and see what this one has to say. Oh, this one has to do with an Indian mound. My experience in Tennessee, I moved to Clarksville, Tennessee in the fall of 1995. I was still in the military and had been transferred there from Alaska. I met two friends, B and D, through a friend who wanted to go and get some firewood. And when I first went to where B and D lived, it was a rural area bordering Cross Creeks National Wildlife Refuge in Indian Mound, Tennessee. Oh, okay, I guess it's the name of a town, sorry. Which is Stewart County. Most of the land was for sale around them, and it was owned for years by a paper company and bought up by another company that I purchased 5 acres from. At that time, I think there were 4 or 5 trailers in the hollow, and we spent a lot of time out there getting firewood and talking with B&D, where once we purchased the 5 acres, I was out there just about every weekend hunting and fishing, and the first few years it was quiet and nothing really happened. I was deployed during that time and missed out on the late hunting seasons. But we got on the subject of Bigfoot one day, and Dee looked at me and said, maybe that's the crazy hillbillies I kept seeing when we first moved out here. I guess she would see things running on the ridge above them when they first moved onto their property. She told me about nights when something would be above their trailer growling at them just out of sight from the back porch. We also noted that the dogs refused to go into the woods during these events. In late fall 1997, I was finally able to hunt the whole deer season and had the whole hollow to myself during the weekends. Or the weekdays, rather. I hunted on Fort Campbell during the weekends when I could, but the weekdays I was out on my land and the surrounding land. I would park at B&D's house and walk onto my property just down the road and through the woods, and it depended on which way the wind was blowing. Most of the time, I would take the road and then cut up the hill to my deer stand. I started to get the feeling that I was being watched by something, and something wasn't quite right, and I could tell the deer disappeared, and when I would see them, they acted nervous and stayed in large groups. Sometimes I would see 30 or 40 together, and always running flat out from the ridge across the street onto my property, and straight over the top, never stopping. Then the stalking started. I noticed something following me back to my truck. It would come in about an hour before dark and just stay far enough away so I could never get a look. But it was there. I heard it following me off my property, just far enough back as not to be seen, but I never felt threatened. I think it was more of a game or curiosity than anything else. I did notice the deer would not appear or make their mad dash across my land on the nights I was being followed. I lost two deer that year. One was during bow season and the other during muzzle loading season, and both were hit with good kill shots, and I tracked the blood trails to the spots they died and found nothing but blood and a little disturbed area, and it was as if they had been picked up and carried away. No drag marks or anything out of the ordinary. I had acorns and sticks thrown at me twice while I was in my deer stand, and a couple more times while I was stalking around. There was a spur with a thicket on it. The acorns and sticks would come from in that direction. Also, I noticed dead trees had the habit of falling over a lot on calm days. It became a game of sorts, but never threatening. I'd leave my deer stand in the tree if I was coming back the next morning, and one morning I returned early before sunrise, and when I got to my stand, I got to the tree my stand was in, it had been pushed up the tree to about 12 feet off the ground. And that kind of surprised me, but what can you do? If you say anything, people will think you're crazy or won't let you hunt on their land, so I just chalked it up to experience and carried the stand in and out. I made friends with a man who was born and raised in the area, and he was in his late 80s. His family's farm wasn't far from where my land was. And we would talk a lot about my hunting, and I asked if he had ever seen anything out of the ordinary, and he told me that when he was young, there was a white ape running around on his family's land, tobacco farmers, and he had seen it, but he was very young at the time and couldn't remember much except that it really scared him. He told me about a time that he and a friend went down to the Cumberland River to fish one evening, and something was making, in his words, such a ruckus that they got scared and left the area and never returned. He said the trees were swaying and it was a screaming. I told him about what I felt being watched and what happened to me, the acorns, sticks, and my tree stand, and he got the biggest grin on his face but would never say anything more than strange things happen. Sadly, he died not long after that conversation. I started hunting across the street on other people's property off and on during these years. Most was private property, and some belonged to West Vaco, a paper company, and I tried to hunt during the off parts of the season, weekdays, because during the weekends, hunters were out in force, and most people in the area liked having me around because I would run off the hunters without permission. One lady in particular always had something to say about me hunting on her land, and that I didn't have permission to hunt hers. It seemed I was always blamed when she saw someone on her land chasing deer. I look back on it now, and the deer would always run across her land to my land, and who or what did she see chasing the deer? I knew the boundaries and stayed away from her land, but I was blamed just because I was the only one out there. 95% of the time I was on my side of the road, and the land I knew I was allowed to hunt on. I hunted her side of the road during the late rifle season in 1999. It was about 4 a.m. when I got there, and I couldn't get to sleep and really didn't realize how early I had left that morning. I parked my truck and waited for about an hour before sunrise and started to walk the ridge back behind another friend's property. I'd found a lot of scrapes and rubs on the ridge and was going to a giant tree where I knew I could see a good distance down the ridgeline. The weather was perfect, about 40 degrees, no wind, no clouds, and the stars were bright enough to light up the area. And I got to my spot, sat down with my back to the tree. I was only there about 10 minutes in perfect quiet, no sounds whatsoever, when something roared or screamed, and it felt like it was right next to me, but it was about 100 yards down the hill in a thicket. I was in a state of shock. Everything hit me at once. What was it? Where is it? Where is it going? I was sitting down, but went from a sitting position to standing instantly. I had a gun, Winchester .338, but knew it was useless. Whatever it was just too big. When it roared and screamed, the only way I can describe it, it took off like a bull moose charging through the woods, taking out everything in its path. I can remember it was on 2 feet that I could tell right off. It stayed in the thicket, running from my right until it was in front of me, about 100 to 150 yards, and stopped, roared, screamed again, and took off at a dead run over the ridge and down into the gully, staying in the thicket the whole time. I could hear it running all the way down to the bottom, and it was a steady thud, 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 thud as its feet hit the ground. When it got to the bottom, I figured it was gone, but it roared and screamed and started climbing the next hill over, and I could hear it giving up or going up, and when it got to the top, it stopped, roared and screamed, and went over that hill. I was in shock. Never did I expect that to happen to me, not in Tennessee. Maybe Alaska, but not Tennessee. Well, I left the area, went to my truck, expecting to see that my hair had turned white from nearly being scared to death, but it hadn't. I did realize one thing. No bullets were in the chamber of my gun. I forgot to put one in on the way up to my tree. I had 3 in the magazine, but none chambered. I went back during the daytime. A few days later, walked back to the tree I was sitting at. It was a nice day. I decided to go down to the spot that the roar came from, but it was too thick to walk into, so I walked the edges the same way it ran. It was in a thicket, and I could not even navigate thorn bushes and everything. It was a tangle of vines and bushes, and I walked the edges of the thicket, and it took me over 3.5 hours to climb down and up to the spot I last heard it roar and scream. It took a minute at the most for that thing to navigate that thicket at a run in the dark. One night, just as the sun was setting, I was in my tree stand and heard the deer coming up a small draw at a full run, and they ran right up over the ridge, heading straight towards my property, and after they passed, it quieted down, and I heard a high-pitched gurgling noise, like talking, but not. It continued for a few minutes and then stopped, and I figured it was a buck's in a rut, but now that I think about it, it was out of the ordinary. I had never heard that sound before or after that night. It just wasn't normal. I got to check the time quickly. Yeah, we got 3 minutes. Hopefully I'll be okay. The next year, 2000, was a good year. I was hunting private property at the edge of the same ridge. The property was cornered on 2 sides by a Cross Creeks National Wildlife Refuge. I had an old tree stand that was left years ago and about 20 feet up. It was across from B&D's house, so I could park and walk it in like 10 minutes. I shot a buck and followed the blood trail where it went down, but it was just gone, just like the other 2 times before. A week into hunting, I got the feeling of being watched, and it continued for a few days, and then one evening, I heard a snap like a branch breaking, and then another, and so on for over an hour, and it went on, and I thought it might be a buck in the thicket. After an hour, it started to get to me that the branches were too big to be snapped by a buck in a rut. It was sounding more like a tree being broken in half, so I climbed down and looked around, never left the clearing, but saw nothing. I did get the feeling of stay away when I looked or moved towards the area the noises came from. I started heading back to my truck, and something started to follow me, just back in the woodline out of sight, and I took off at a dead run all the way back. When I got to my truck, Dee was standing there looking at me like I was crazy. She had watched me running and asked me what was wrong, and I told her, and she just looked at me. I went back up there after the season ended 3 days later to the spot the branches were broken. I found them all. Sapling trees 4 to 5 inches round, snapped in half. Funny thing is, they were all snapped over 8 feet up. I couldn't reach any of them, and I'm 5'9". There was no wind on that day or any day after that I was hunting. I can add that I looked for footprints on the ground, but the cover was thick leaf covering, and I never found any prints. The woods where all this happened was logged 30 years ago. There are a lot of abandoned homes, farms, and barns in that area with old fruit trees and around those areas. The area is full of oaks and thickets, very hilly, and with water close by. I found some small caves back in the wildlife refuge, but they're small, only going in about 10 to 12 feet. I can't remember smelling anything out of the ordinary, but during that time of the year, the tobacco smoke houses are going in the hollows, always smell like smoke. All of my experiences took place in November and December, never had anything happen during the summer. I did find a few deer kills that didn't look quite right. When one was on my property, and it was more of a bloodbath than anything else, and it was spread around a 20-foot area. Blood everywhere, and looked like it had been ripped to pieces. Scavengers had been there before me, and when I found it, it was a day or two old. I found 2 does, nothing wrong with them, no arrow bullet holes, just off the trails dead. I think their necks had been broken. After 2000, I was deployed in the wars in Afghanistan and Iraq, so hunting was out of the question. I retired in 2005 in the Army and haven't been back since. D has since passed away in 2004. B still lives out there, but we have little communication. I guess a lot of people are building houses out there, and the area has changed a lot since back then. Wow. Perfect timing. I made it through. That's pretty intense, ladies and gentlemen. Don't go away. We'll be back for the last half hour of the show. Call in if you want. The lines are open. We'll be right back. ladies and gentlemen. Last half hour of the show, but I'm sorry. I understand that I missed a phone call from Jerry. I didn't mean to, brother. I would have loved to have heard from you. I don't know when exactly you called. I just scrolled up and looked at the chat over the break. It's never my intention to not see the phone, but it's just hard on two monitors to get everything. I got to get a third monitor up in here so that I can see things more. I got windows stacked on these two big monitors, and so it gets pretty tricky sometimes being the one-man show, keeping track of everything going on. And so I do apologize. It's never my intention to leave somebody hanging. But if you want to try again, I'll watch it, and or I'll try to do better watching it, and we'd love to hear from you. So lines are open. But we are back, ladies and gentlemen. This last half hour of the show, it is cruising by tonight, as it always does. Special thanks again to everybody that emailed in. That was really wonderful. I just love that part of the show. It's just so awesome, whether it's callers or emails. Those are truly my favorite parts. It's your guys' experience, your understandings, your what you've seen and been through. So pretty intense. Pretty freaking intense. So I'm going to go into another Bigfoot story here, and I'm going to go to Kentucky. And because I got a request for Kentucky. So I'm going to see what I can find. H-I-J. I got to know my alphabet. So it's all alphabetized, so makes it absolutely tricky. All right. This one's coming from 2012. Let's see what's going on here. So this is Anderson County, Kentucky. It says, landowner sees a Sasquatch cross his road in 2012. It says, I have 7-acre tract of land that borders on Anderson and Franklin County in Kentucky. My land is undeveloped and near a high ridge called Hickory Ridge. I was out at my property last Saturday night, burning wood and old trees that I had cleared from my site. I sat next to the fire, facing the fire, and also facing a small road that runs through my property. It is my access road, and at 8 p.m. that night, I looked up quickly from hearing some noise, but also picked up on a huge shadowy figure coming up the road. I thought it was a hunter, but it was much larger. The second time I looked back at it, it went to its left and crossed over what I thought was a barbed wire fence along my property line. And then it went into the woods. At that time, I didn't think it was a hunter. I guess I wasn't sure what it was, since this was Kentucky and not Oregon or California. I did hear some noise in the woods of branches breaking, and then nothing. Upon returning to my home in Frankfort, Kentucky, I checked online and was surprised that there were 15 other Bigfoot sightings in Anderson County over the past few years. I believe that I saw a Bigfoot that night going into the woods. Yeah, because generally people don't go into the woods at night. We're just not very good at it. We don't see real well into the woods. So, yeah. Yeah, that's right, Duke. Yeah, the Patterson-Gimlin film is always under attack, but it stood the test of time as being valid. There's so many reasons why, but you'll have to check out, if any of you are interested in why it's still valid. You check into Bill Munn's. He did a great breakdown of it. He was a special effects guy back in the 60s. Did a lot of the effects for Planet of the Apes. And he goes into detail on why that couldn't have been a suit, based upon his experience with professional special effects. And then look into things like Thinker Thunker, going through the breakdown as far as body ratios. I was talking about that a little bit the other night, but he definitely addresses that as well, and shows how come it couldn't have been a person. Just based on body ratios, a person would not fit in that suit. It just wouldn't work. We bend in different places. Our arm hinges are in different spots. Our shoulders hinge a little differently. Our head placement is different. There's so many reasons why it can't be a person, and it's really fascinating stuff to dig into. And it's why it stood up through the test of time. And there are some people who absolutely believe it's phony, but those are the kind of people you wouldn't be able to prove it to them anyway. They just don't want to believe. At that point, when you can look into all those reasons why it can't be a person and still say it's fake, then you've just got somebody who doesn't want to believe. If they are not willing to look at logic, if they're not willing to address biological constants such as our anatomy, no matter who you are, the way we walk, how our hips and our ratios of our bodies, and everybody's got some variations, but there's still consistencies, even from dwarfism into giantism in the human species. We still have the same ratios. That doesn't change a whole lot. So definitely worth looking into, but the Patterson-Gimlin film is in my opinion, just some incredible strike of lightning and good luck. For over 50 years, it has withstood attack by irrational people. Yeah, it has. It really has. Yeah, Thinker Thunker is amazing, Laurie Myers. I agree. He does a great job. Now, he'll be the first one to say he's not always right, but I give him a hell of a lot of credit because at least he's trying to figure it out. There's so many people that just give arbitraries. That's real. Why is it real? What are you seeing that makes it real? Well, I think it's real. Or that's fake. Well, why is it fake? Well, this because I don't think it's real. But Thinker Thunker at least comes out of the gate with rationale, with criteria, with some kind of backing to why he believes that it is or isn't real. And he hasn't been right all the time, but he's right a lot of the time. And he at least is putting himself out there, trying to cut through all the BS out there. There's so much crap out there. There's so many people that are trying to consistently perpetuate hoaxes just because it must be a real big kick to see how far your stupid video can go. But unfortunately, there's a lot of people that have put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears and, time into, researching this to have a bunch of clowns come up and with their fake hoaxy stuff. So we got another call. Oh, the call just dropped. Why is this call dropping so much? Oh, try again. Oh my God. I was just going to click on it and it dropped. So yeah, I think he's right most of the time as well, Duke. I think he does a really good job, and he's, the guy's a very intelligent guy. So if that was Jerry again, please try again, brother. Please, I want to hear from you. I'm going to be waiting right here. I'm going to stare at this damn call board until your number comes through. Hit redial, Jerry. There it is. All right, are you there? Did I get you this time?
All right, are you there?
Yeah, you're
Hello,
real.
can you hear me?
Hi, I can hear you.
Can you hear me at all?
Yeah, who's this? Hello?
Can you hear me? Great. It's oh my God, I've been having so much trouble calling you.
Who is this? Hello? I got like weird.
Who is this? This is Ocean, Diane, Diane.
Oh, okay.
Dee.
I got all kinds of echoes coming back at me, Dee.
Diane, Diane. Hang on, and I hear, I don't know why.
Do you have speakers
So
going or something?
It went away. Say something, please.
I'm saying something. Are you hearing me okay?
Please say something.
Yeah, I really am. I'm still saying something. I don't know what's going on.
Oh, no.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, I really am. Still.
There's just too much
I
of a
can't
delay.
hear you.
It's too much of a delay.
I've
I'm
been
sorry,
having-
Diane.
My home phone is out. This phone is out.
Okay.
Kind of only halfway there.
Yeah.
I'm
sorry, but
I may disappear.
we cannot. There's too many echoes. I'm sorry. I just had to cut that. It's just not. That is. I'm sorry, Diane. I had to cut it. There's just way too many echoes of my own conversation coming back. I don't know what's wrong. I am sorry, but it would have been great to talk to you. I don't know if she knows that yet. She's getting lots of rebound. Yeah, the call's still hanging there. Yeah. Well, I don't know. I guess it wasn't Jerry that was calling. But it's just weird. I don't know what's going on with their phones. Okay. But anyway, back to Thinker Thunker. Yeah, I think he does a great job. It's a great channel to check out. He does breakdowns on pretty much any of the more popular Bigfoot videos that are out there. It's just, he puts himself out there with criteria and he tries and does a great job. So it's definitely worth looking into. Sorry. I just saw that call finally dropped. Okay. Well, I thought maybe that was Jerry calling, but I'm sorry, Diane. Your phone is really flaky, weird. That like weird flaky. I don't know. That's strange. All right. So that was Kentucky number 1. Kentucky number 2. Let's pull up Kentucky story number 2 because I just like talking about Bigfoots. I do like it. All right. So what's this one say? A friend of mine, Joanna Carter, saw a Bigfoot in Harlan County. This is from Kentucky again. Harlan County. She was traveling on rural highway 1137 when something caught her attention on the side of the road. It appeared to be about 8.5 feet tall. Its arms hung ape-like, but it walked in an upright position like a human. The creature did not make sounds, but stared at her as he crossed the road. She stopped and examined the place where she saw him and found a patch of hair that the creature had left on a branch that he had scraped against, and she has this hair sample and would be willing to let scientists examine it as proof of her sighting. If you want to contact her, her email is, and I'm not going to give it out in the air, but thank you, name withheld. The description from the witness: the color of the creature I saw was probably what you define as a brownish, grayish, yellowish, reddish mix. The texture of the hair was long and nappy. I could not tell the sex of the creature, but I do remember slight facial features. The head was long and wider at the bottom and formed a stiff lock of hair at the top. The chest is quite bulky and was significantly noticeable. As the hands were in the form of that of a human's, only covered in hair, it was running as a human would run, but appeared to have red eyes. I saw the creature just last week, early June, which I don't know when this was actually submitted, but it was in early June, whatever year this was, while crossing a road. When he noticed the sounds of my vehicle, he ran swiftly into a patch of berries aside the road, and then continued running through what I assumed to be the mountains and woods of Appalachia and southeastern Kentucky. Thank you for your time and patience. Wow, that's really intense. I would love to know what would have happened to this hair. That call. Actually, D, your call was kind of creepy, to be honest with you. It was weird. It was like there was many people on the phone, but then I realized it was my own voice coming back. And it was really faint at first, and then it just got louder, so it was very confusing. All right, and one final one from Kentucky. And this one is pretty long, but we'll read it all the same. I do apologize, D. I would love to have had a chance to talk to you, but you still sound great for what it's worth. It's just your phones suck tonight. So, having lived in the area for more than 4 years, I've become accustomed to and familiar with driving my ATV, my Honda 450 Foreman, in and around the Daniel Boone National Forest. I was 22 years old and was dating a local girl who had lived in the county her entire life, and we'll call her Pam. We left my house one October night, traveled to the end of my ridge road, which is gravel, then continued on the dirt logging road, no longer in use at the time, which is privately owned. The road, of course, was wide enough to have, at one time, accommodated trucks and machinery used for logging. This old road goes on for maybe a mile and a half eastwardly before splitting into 3 separate roads, each having separate arteries branching from them, and we stayed on the eastward path that runs into Daniel Boone National Forest. From this point, there's an old horse trail that the locals use for their equine excursions, and we traveled on the forest horse trail and all the logging roads many times, and I felt intimately familiar with every nook and cranny these paths offered. Pam and I motored down the horse trail at a leisurely pace due to the narrowness of the trail among the thick forest trees. This, coupled with many twists and turns on the horse trail, one could rarely exceed 8 to 10 miles an hour. I know this because the ATV had a digital speedometer readout and was backlit for night travel. After 200 to 300 yards, we came upon a small pond that sits on the south side of the trail. This is a favorite spot of mine. Many times I would travel to this spot at night, turn off my lights and engine, and just sit there and gaze at the stars and take in all the smells and sounds this forest has to offer. I saw my first shooting star while gazing up into the fall night sky the year before at this very spot. The small circular pond sits in a very tiny clearing of the forest just off the horse trail, with the tree line only about 20 feet from the water's edge all the way around. I pulled around to the side of the pond opposite the trail under a clear and half moonlit sky, and I turned off the engine and lights. I was oblivious that we had just parked near an entity that did not want us there. Fortunately, before we could even lift our butts off the seat to get off the ATV, there was a tremendous roar that came from the tree line directly behind us, and probably no more than 40 or 50 yards away. I was instantly terrified, as this was a sound I had never heard. It was loud and close. Pam screamed as I started up the ATV and headed back down the trail towards home. Luckily, the trail back out of there lay right in front of us. Holding on to me from behind, Pam remained silent as we made our escape. As quickly as I could and without hitting any trees, we made our way back to the logging road a few hundred yards away, and I never remember turning my body to look back, but I looked from side to side many times. This model ATV has 3 headlights. 2 are in a fixed position on the four-wheeler's front, and the third is attached to the handlebars and thus turned from side to side several dozen times as we made our way back to the logging road. From the pond to the logging road, I saw nothing unusual on either side of the tree line, neither directly nor in my peripheral vision. But remember, the horse trail is on the forest property and the trees are much more densely populated. Even with the ATV's lights and the half moon, my vision would have been severely limited. Neither of us shouted or spoke to one another during the retreat on the horse trail. During this time, I remember telling myself over and over that it must be some kind of animal or even bird that had made that awful noise. And finally, after what had seemed like an eternity, we reached the logging road. It greeted us with a straighter, wider path and sparsely populated trees. Now comes the recollection that haunts my dreams to this day. Having reached the logging road without seeing or hearing any signs that we were being pursued and not wanting to wreck, of course, I only moderately quickened our pace. Now on the south side of the trail, something caught my eyes. I saw a dark figure running parallel to the road directly to my left about 30 yards. This thing was running on 2 legs, and it looked like a very tall and large human form. I looked directly at it for a few seconds, then turned back to look at the road, then turned and looked in its direction one more time to discover it was still there, keeping pace with us. During the second and final glance of this being, which also lasted a couple of seconds, it was one of those moments in life where you wonder if what you are experiencing is real or just a dream. I looked down at my large digital backlit speedometer, 22 miles per hour. Finally, a moderately sharp bend in the south trail. I had to slow a little as the road straightened again. I floored it, and for the first time turned my body to look to the left and a little behind to see this curve to the left had allowed the creature an advantage in case it was upon me or even in front of me. Nothing. It was not in close proximity to my left or rear. I even scanned the trees to my right. Nothing. I cocked my head to the side and yelled over the sound of the engine, "Pam, do you see it?" These being the first words I had spoken since the encounter. She must have thought my abrupt acceleration was due to the fact that beyond the sharp turn in the trail we just passed, the road did become more straight and smooth. Her response in my ears, "I didn't see anything. Did you see something?" I said, "Nope," with intentions of telling her everything once we reached my house. I slowed my pace, and within minutes we were on the gravel road which led home. We went over the experience again and again that night, but I never told her what I saw. I sold my four-wheeler and moved into the city in the summer of 1999. I purchased another ATV in 2000. I thought I bought a trailer and would pull my ATV to the 49 exit off of I-75 and do my riding in Laurel and Rockcastle counties. I hauled my ATV back to the area I saw the creature on a summer and day in 2001. I was alone. I went to the pond and stood on the bank for a few minutes. I skipped a few rocks and then left. It was a beautiful day. Wow. That is so intense. Oh my God. Hello, my lovelies, says Paisley. And ladies and gentlemen, remember, following the show on TFR, iHeart, TuneIn, and TalkStream Live, Paisley Wild will be joining us on her Spaces Between. The Spaces Between show will be coming up next. And it's a good show. She's a great person. She's a good friend, and I hope you guys will help her spread the word about her show as well. Lord knows it ain't easy breaking through into these paranormals and other topics. It's hard to break through. It's hard to get some traction because there's a lot of shows out there. There's a lot of people out there doing this, and you know, it's just by, you know, you guys have just made the difference for us. You guys have shared the word. You guys have told people about the show. You guys have, you know, shared postings we put up, and it's really been helping a lot. The audience continues to grow and grow and grow. Now, I will say there's a lot of Paranormal Portal out there, you know, with 7 shows a week, every night, 7 p.m. Pacific time on YouTube. We're kind of out there a whole bunch. And then the Monday, Wednesday, Friday podcasts as well. It gives us quite a bit of coverage, but we've really had a lot of help by a lot of wonderful people. Duke, of course, has been really key in helping us be recognized out there. Wes Germer of Sasquatch Chronicles has been absolutely amazing as well. He's taken it upon himself to, you know, be there and answer questions and has been a great friend as well. Tony Merkel of the Confessionals has really helped us. There's just a lot of people pulling for us, and it's just really an amazing feeling to be doing a show that, you know, people are willing to do that for. You know, I'm just absolutely humbled, and it's wonderful, absolutely wonderful. So thank you guys, all of you, for those of you who have spread the word, are trying to get people to notice the show, and are actively helping to support us. It's no small feat, but you guys make it amazing. So I am absolutely thrilled. MCAT did tell me, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, that he has MCAT, or Mike Hetzel, who submitted the EVPs that we went over earlier on the show. He does have a Bandcamp site as well. And his, let me get this open so I can tell you the URL, but I definitely want to push it. And he's got his EVPs posted up there. And it's bandcamp.com. It's mcat.bandcamp.com. So go there and check it out, and you can check out a lot of his other EVPs that he's recorded. He's just such an amazing guy, and his heart's really in this paranormal stuff. He really loves doing it, and he's very good at it. And so, as you heard tonight, the captures he had tonight were really spectacular. Again, I want to get those on a headset just so I can really jam them and hear what those words are. But it's just so intense just to think. And when you think about that, ladies and gentlemen, that's really the magic part of it. It's, you know, the idea that you could be communicating or getting words from people who are no longer in a body. They're in their spiritual form and still able to communicate with us. Hey, Doc Kayak, good to see you, brother. Dr. Kayak just showed up in the TFR chat room. Awesome to see you, brother. Missed you. Good, nice that you showed up. But the EVPs is just an incredible modality, and you know, it's nothing. There's nothing small about it. If you're capturing anomalous voices that could belong to people that have since passed away, that's bridging that gap. That's the first huge step in bridging that gap between this world and the next. Now, the only thing I'll say about EVPs, I guess the hard part of it is that it's still not. We're still not able to have robust conversation. It's just words or phrases or something, and that's still amazingly huge. That's amazingly profound in the big picture, but it really makes me excited for how or when will we finally get the means to, you know, call Grandma. Hey, Grandma, I miss you. How's things? What's going on over there? You know, I mean, that is it possible? Maybe it is. Maybe it really is. Maybe there will be a day when we can do that, when we can just literally call those loved ones that have, you know, departed our lives and call them to their new lives and just see what's going on. I don't pretend to know how it all works on the other side, but if we are indeed communicating with some of these very same people, that is incredibly profound. And it's sky's the limits, ladies and gentlemen. But I'll tell you what, we're about out of time here tonight. Again, stick around for Paisley Wild, The Spaces Between, coming up next on TFR, iHeart, TuneIn, and TalkStream Live. Check us out on Facebook, facebook.com/Paranormal Portal Radio, on Twitter at Paranormal Portal, PORTL, podcasts, iTunes, Pandora, Spotify, etc., etc. It's our podcast. And, of course, if you're not already subscribed to our YouTube, please do, youtube.com/Paranormal Portal. Thank you guys so much. I love you all. Be good, be kind, be nice, take care of each other, help each other out, find the magic in every day, and remember to laugh as much as you can. Take care, everybody. I'll see you tomorrow night. Don will be here, and we'll go 2 hours again.